She missed her last train, exhausted, alone and stuck in an empty station. But when a man in a tuxedo sat beside her, she had no idea he was hiding a secret that would change everything. He wasn't just any stranger. He was a groom who had just walked away from his own wedding. What followed was a night of quiet confessions, broken hearts, and an unexpected connection that neither of them saw coming. But could two people from completely different worlds really find something real on a cold wooden bench? If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The last train had already gone. Clara Jensen stood under the dim lights of Rosebridge Central Station, staring at the empty platform in disbelief. Her shoes pinched her feet. Her purse strap was frayed and threatening to break, and her phone had died just as she tried to check the schedule. Her shift at Meadow Lane Care Center had run long again, thanks to a last-minute emergency. And now, at nearly midnight, she was stranded in a city that had already started to close its eyes. With a sigh, Clara shuffled toward a wooden bench near the waiting area. The bench creaked as she sank into it, her body aching from hours on her feet. The vending machines hummed nearby, casting flickering light on the tiled floor. Across the station, a cleaner mopped slowly, humming to himself. Clara pulled a lukewarm coffee from a paper bag and took a sip. It was bitter and weak, but warm enough to comfort her for a moment. She glanced at the wide station clock above. Almost 12. 5 hours until the first train. Perfect, she muttered. Just perfect. As she leaned back, a movement caught her eye. A man in a tuxedo was walking briskly across the empty floor, his jacket unbuttoned, bow tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked like he'd stepped out of a wedding, except his shoulders slumped, and his steps didn't match his elegant outfit. He paused near the center of the station, turning slowly like someone trying to remember why they came. Clara watched him, not intending to stare, but something about the way he stood, the lost look in his eyes, held her attention. After a moment, his gaze swept the room and landed on her. He seemed surprised to find someone else here. Then without a word, he walked over and sat at the other end of her bench. He left a polite distance between them. For a while, neither said anything. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Then he sighed. It wasn't a small sigh. It was the kind of sigh that came from deep inside, heavy with everything unspoken. Clara took another sip of coffee, unsure whether to speak. But in the quiet, his voice came, soft and clear. "I didn't miss a train," he said. "I missed a wedding." She turned to him, surprised by the honesty in his tone. He was staring at the ground. "Your own?" she asked before she could stop herself. He nodded slowly. "My own." Clara didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "Don't be," he replied, a tired smile tugging at his mouth. "I think it's for the best." The loudspeaker crackled overhead, announcing a security check at one of the exits. When the sound faded, the silence between them felt different, not as awkward, not as separate. "I'm Simon," he said, reaching over to offer his hand. "Simon Hartley." "Clara," she replied, shaking it. "Clara Jensen." His hand was warm, the shake firm but kind. "So, Clara Jensen," Simon said, "what brings you to a train station at midnight?" She chuckled softly. "Nothing quite as dramatic as yours. I'm a caregiver at Meadow Lane. My boss kept me late. Then my heel broke. Then my phone died. Missed the train by 5 minutes. That's some bad luck," he said. She shrugged. "I've had worse. This week's just been long." He nodded, understanding. "I run a hospitality company, big hotels, lots of meetings. Always in a rush to be somewhere. And yet tonight, I couldn't go through with it." "The wedding?" Clara asked gently. "Yes." He rubbed the back of his neck. She texted her maid of honor right before the ceremony, said she couldn't do it, walked out without saying a word to me. Clara winced. "That's rough." "The strangest thing," he said, "is that I wasn't shocked. Somewhere deep down, I think I knew." For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, she offered him half of her granola bar, the emergency snack she'd packed earlier that day. "Dinner?" she said with a faint smile. He took it, nodding in thanks. Better than the wedding food I never got to try. They ate, in silence. The air around them seemed to soften. "So what now?" Clara asked. "I suppose I'll have to go back eventually," Simon said, glancing at his buzzing phone. "But for now, I just needed to sit, to breathe, away from cameras, questions, people who see me but don't really know me." Clara looked at him thoughtfully. "Sometimes it takes getting stuck in a place you didn't plan to be, to finally find the quiet. I think you might be right." And so two strangers sat side by side on a wooden bench in an empty station, each carrying a different kind of sorrow, neither expecting anything. But something real and quiet passed between them, an unspoken understanding that just maybe they were meant to meet in this pause between life's planned destinations. The morning after that strange night at Rosebridge Central, Clara Jensen tried to convince herself it hadn't meant much. Just a missed train, just a stranger in a tuxedo, just a quiet moment shared with someone who would disappear as quickly as he had appeared. Yet something about Simon Hartley stayed with her. She didn't tell anyone at work about the night. Not Marina, her best friend at the care center. Not her supervisor. She slipped back into routine. Early mornings, long shifts, quick meals. But in the quiet moments, she thought of the man in the tuxedo who had missed his own wedding. Then, 3 days later, while she was helping one of the patients settle into bed, Tina from the front desk rushed in, grinning from ear to ear. "Clara?" Tina said, nearly out of breath. "You have to come to reception, now." "What's going on?" Clara asked, wiping her hands. "Just come. Trust me." Clara followed her down the hallway. When they reached the front desk, she stopped in her tracks. Flowers, hundreds of them. Not just roses or carnations, but wildflowers in soft purples, blues, and whites. Delicate, beautiful, and completely unexpected. "Who sent these?" Clara asked, stunned. Tina handed her a small white envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for the bench, the silence, and the granola bar. If you ever want to talk again, here's my number. No pressure, just thanks. Simon." Clara's heart skipped. She felt her face grow warm. The staff behind the desk were watching her, clearly waiting for an explanation. "Is that who I think it is?" Marina whispered when she found Clara alone in the staff room later. "What do you think you know?" Clara asked carefully. "There's a rumor online," Marina said, lowering her voice. "The CEO of Hartley Properties was left at the altar last weekend. Big deal in the business world. His name is Simon Hartley." Clara said nothing. "Wait." Marina leaned in. "Is that the man from the train station?" Clara hesitated, then nodded once. "Yes." Marina's eyes widened. "Clara, you met him? And he sent flowers. What on earth happened that night?" Clara explained in bits and pieces. The missed train, the conversation, the quiet honesty. And then she changed the subject, hoping Marina wouldn't press. But that afternoon, just as Clara was preparing to leave for the day, the receptionist called, her name. "Clara," Tina said, her voice light with surprise. "There's someone here to see you." Standing in the entrance, no longer in a tuxedo but in a simple navy coat and slacks, was Simon. Clara walked over slowly. "Hello?" she said, not sure what else to say. "Hi," he replied, a soft smile on his face. "I hope this isn't too forward. I just wanted to see the place you talked about. Meadow Lane. The patients. The art room. You remembered that?" she asked. "I remember everything you said that night," he replied. She glanced behind her, suddenly aware of the watching eyes. "Would you like a quick tour?" "I'd like that very much." As they walked through the center, Simon listened carefully. He asked thoughtful questions. When Clara introduced him to a few patients, he greeted them with warmth and respect. His presence was calm, not forced. Not like a man used to attention or trying to impress. Just real. When they reached the small corner room that served as the activity area, Clara paused. This is where we do art therapy, she explained. But we don't have much. Old supplies, worn chairs. I've been trying to get funding for a proper program for 2 years. Simon looked around. What kind of program? Something regular, Clara said. Especially for patients with dementia. Painting helps them express feelings they can't say out loud anymore. I see it work every day. He nodded. And you've been trying to get support for this? Yes, but we're a small center. We don't get many grants. Simon looked thoughtful. May I ask a personal question? Depends on the question, Clara said with a smile. Why do you stay? He asked. With your talent, your heart, you could be doing anything, anywhere. Clara looked at the paint-splattered table in the center of the room. Because someone needs to. He didn't reply, just studied her with quiet admiration. Later, as they stood by the door, Simon said, Thank you for showing me around. You didn't have to come, Clara said. Maybe not, he replied. But I wanted to. He took out a small business card and handed it to her. This is my assistant's number. If your center ever needs anything, supplies, funding, support, call. No strings attached. I mean it. Clara hesitated. Why would you do that? He looked at her with calm honesty. Because you're doing something that matters, and because you shared your bench with me when you didn't have to. He left without another word. Clara watched him walk away, unsure what to feel. Somewhere deep inside, something had begun to stir, a question without an answer. Who was this man, really? And why did she want to see him again? Clara Jensen had always lived a quiet life. She liked her small apartment, her sleepy neighborhood, her routines. Nothing about her world was glamorous, but it was hers. Safe. Simple. That was why she felt so uneasy walking into Margies Diner and seeing Simon already seated in a booth by the window. He stood when he saw her, offering a warm smile. You came, he said. I said I would, Clara replied, sliding into the seat across from him. The diner was a familiar place to her. She had eaten here dozens of times. The waitresses knew her order. The menu hadn't changed in years, and yet sitting across from Simon Hartley, dressed casually in a soft gray sweater, the place felt different, unfamiliar. Like her world was suddenly shifting. They ordered their meals, tuna melt for Simon, a veggie omelet for Clara. Small talk followed. Light conversation about work, favorite books, silly childhood memories. I used to paint, Clara admitted at one point, stirring her tea. Before life got too busy. You should paint again, Simon said. You talked about it with so much joy the night we met. Joy doesn't always pay bills, she replied, half smiling. Simon nodded slowly. That's true. But sometimes doing what makes you feel alive is worth more than any paycheck. Their food arrived, and for a while, they ate in comfortable silence. The warmth between them was subtle but growing. Then it happened. The bell above the door jingled and a man with a camera entered. He looked around, spotted Simon, and raised his lens. Mr. Hartley, he called. Is it true you're seeing someone new? Is this your mystery date? Clara froze. Simon stood quickly, placing himself between the camera and Clara. No comment, he said firmly. Please leave. But the camera clicked anyway. Clara turned her face away, her heart pounding. The waitress appeared, frowning. We don't allow photos in here, she said sharply. You need to go. The man grumbled but left after taking a few more shots. As the door closed behind him, Clara looked down at her plate. She had lost her appetite. I'm so sorry, Simon said, sitting again. I thought this place was quiet enough. Is this what it's like? Clara asked quietly. All the time? He nodded. Not always that aggressive, but yes, the attention comes with the job. And the name, she added. Simon didn't deny it. I understand if this is too much. Clara looked at him. I don't know. I didn't sign up for being part of the news. I just wanted lunch. I know, he said softly. And I hate that it turned into this. They finished their meal in silence. When it was time to leave, Simon walked her to the back exit of the diner, away from the windows. A black car was waiting. His driver opened the door. Please, Simon said. Let Frank take you home. It's safer. Clara hesitated, then nodded. Once inside the car, Simon turned to her. I never meant for you to get caught up in this. I just wanted to see you again. I believe you, she said. He reached into his coat and handed her a small envelope. This isn't pressure, he said. Just an invitation. I have a cabin outside the city, no press, no cameras, just peace and trees and quiet. Clara opened the note later that night. It was written in simple handwriting. If you ever want to step away from the noise, even just for a few hours, come to the cabin. I'll be there. No expectations, just honesty. She stared at the note for a long time. The next day at work, her patients noticed something different in her. Mr. Lyle, who rarely spoke, looked at her and said, You're distracted. Maybe, Clara replied with a smile. Later, she told Marina everything. About the lunch, the camera, the invitation. You should go, Marina said without hesitation. You deserve one day where the world can't find you. That weekend, Clara said yes. The drive to the cabin was quiet. The farther they went from the city, the lighter her chest felt. The cabin was nestled among tall trees, with wide windows, and a wraparound porch. It wasn't large or fancy, it felt warm. Lived in. This is beautiful, Clara said as they stepped inside. Thank you, Simon replied. I come here when I need to remember who I am. They walked through the woods, down to a still lake. The surface reflected the sky like glass. Clara felt herself breathe deeply for the first time in weeks. They sat on a bench by the water, wrapped in the sounds of birds and wind in the trees. Why me? Clara asked suddenly. Why bring me? Here? Simon turned to her, honest and calm. Because you listened, because you saw me. Not the name, not the scandal, just me. And I wanted to return that. To show you my world, not the loud part. The real one. Clara looked at him. In that moment, something inside her softened. Maybe this, she said quietly, isn't as impossible as I thought. They sat together, not as nurse and CEO, not as headlines and whispers, but as two people who, for a moment, had found something quiet and rare in the middle of a noisy world. The morning after visiting the cabin, Clara woke up with a feeling she couldn't quite name. It wasn't fear and it wasn't regret. It was something quieter, like standing at the edge of something new, not sure whether to take the next step. Simon hadn't pushed. He hadn't asked her to stay longer or made promises he couldn't keep. But the silence they had shared by the lake, the simple honesty between them had meant more than any long speech ever could. Back at work, things moved as usual. Patients needed care. Reports had to be filled. But everywhere Clara turned, someone mentioned the flowers, the man in the suit, the donation that was now helping her long-dreamed art therapy program come to life. Mrs. Kearney, an older woman, Clara often painted with, reached for her hand during a session. I like him, she said simply. Clara blinked. Who? You know who, Mrs. Kearney smiled, brushing blue paint across her canvas. The one who looks at you like you're a quiet song he wants to learn by heart. Clara laughed softly, but her chest ached a little. She hadn't seen Simon since the cabin. They'd exchanged short texts, simple messages, kind check-ins, but nothing more. She wasn't sure if that space was out of respect or fear. Then one afternoon, Marina came running down the hallway holding her phone. You need to see this, she said, eyes wide. It was a photo. Clara and Simon sitting on the bench by the lake. Someone must have taken it from a distance. The caption read, Billionaire quietly reconnects with mystery woman away from city lights. Clara's stomach dropped. Not again. But the article was different. No assumptions, no gossip. Just a simple story about a man who had once been in the spotlight and seemed to be stepping away from it. That evening, Clara's phone buzzed. They caught us again, Simon wrote. It wasn't your fault, she replied. After a pause, another message came. I'd like to see you. No press. Just us. Clara looked around her apartment. Her cat curled up on the windowsill. A half-finished painting on the table. Life, Still simple. Okay, she replied. Meet me somewhere quiet. A few days later, Simon asked Clara to meet him at Rosebridge Central, the place where it had all started. She stepped into the station, now mostly empty, just like that first night. The same bench waited at the far end under the soft glow of tired lights. Simon was already there. When she approached, he stood. He looked nervous, almost shy. Thank you for coming, he said. Of course, she answered. This feels right. They sat. I've been thinking a lot, Simon began, looking straight ahead, about what it means to live a life that's real, not one built on image or duty or what people expect. Clara listened, her hands folded in her lap. I used to think love had to look a certain way, he continued. Big gestures, perfect stories. But now I know, it's quieter than that. It's in the pauses, in the shared silence, in the moments no one else sees. He turned to her. What I'm trying to say is, I don't have a perfect plan, but I know I want more benches with you, more early mornings, more quiet days. From his coat pocket he pulled a small velvet box, not a ring. Inside was a silver pendant in the shape of a bench, delicate and simple. This isn't a proposal, he said quickly. Not yet. This is a promise, a reminder of how we met and how I want us to move forward, slowly, honestly, together. Clara reached out and touched the charm. It felt cool in her hand, but her chest felt warm. Thank you, she whispered. He fastened it around her neck. The pendant rested just above her heart. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clara said, You once told me you didn't know what you really wanted. Simon nodded. And now? She asked. He smiled. I think I do. I want a life that feels like that night on this bench. Quiet, real, with someone who sees me for who I am. Clara took his hand. You have that, she said. And so do I. Months passed. The art program at Meadow Lane grew. Patients who rarely spoke began expressing themselves through colors and shapes. Clara painted again, not for fame, but for joy. And Simon, true to his word, stepped back from the public eye. He still ran his business, but on his terms. They saw each other often, sometimes at the cabin, sometimes in the city, and sometimes at Rosebridge Central, sitting on the same bench, watching the world pass by. 1 year later, Clara unveiled a painting at a community art show. It showed two figures sitting on a bench beneath soft yellow lights. The piece was titled, A Promise in Silence. As people admired the work, Simon stood quietly beside her. No cameras, no headlines, just him. Do you still think this life is too simple? Clara asked. No, Simon replied. I think it's exactly enough. They smiled at each other. Sometimes, the best stories don't start with fireworks or perfect timing. Sometimes they begin with a missed train, a quiet bench, and two people brave enough to stay.